It is good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or even top of the night to you as you join me for this. So, what does that look like Bible study with this notion that yes, we absolutely can look into that ancient old Bible to find principles that are applicable to our lives today? We just got to figure out what does it look like? Like, how do we actually apply these truths? And yes, we can do it as well. So, here we go Genesis chapter 37. We're going to start with our faith sibling Joseph. Now, Joseph in this context was about 17 years old. He is the son of Rebekah. Rebekah is the wife that Jacob, his daddy, absolutely loved. Joseph is her eldest son. He is the son who came late in his father's age, kind of like this special package that comes right there at the end. So his father loves him dearly. In addition to that, the father makes Joseph this coat of many colors. Now, this coat of many colors was evident to his brothers and siblings that were watching that Joseph is the one who's the favorite. And y'all can already imagine how that then went down. They were not pleased. There was already a sense of jealousy and anger that was building up in their heart. But get this, it wasn't because of anything that Joseph had done, it was because the favor that was bestowed upon him by his father. Joseph was also the one among the siblings who really tried to do right. And when things were not right, when his siblings were not doing right, the Bible says that he would be the one to go and report that to his father. So that perhaps endeared him to his father a bit too. But in addition to that, it certainly made him not so high on the favor list when it came to his own siblings. And last but not least, in addition to being a favorite, the son of the woman who his father really loved, an eldest son that came along right there at the end of his father's life that gave him an additional great pleasure and all of that, the one who tried to do right and report that to the father, the one who had the coat of many colors, which represented favor that he didn't go out bidding for, it came to him. He was the one who also had dreams. Yeah, Joseph had dreams and visions. And get this, y'all. He, in all of his innocence and his 17-year-old naive, kind of just pure of heart self, he actually began to share that with his brothers, his siblings. And that only furthered their jealousy and their anger and their resentment towards him. He had his visions, his goals, his aspirations of who he saw himself being, his promotion and increase. And he was actually trying to share that with people who were close to him. And unbeknownst to him, he did not know that was not a safe space. And so those people only increased their jealousy, increased their hatred, their resentment towards him. And so here's that context. It's set like that. And in the midst of that, later in Genesis chapter 37, around verses number 16, 17, the father sends Joseph on a quick errand, or so he thinks. He tells Joseph, I want you to go and check on your brothers out in the field to make sure that they're well. And so Joseph, he agrees. He's just with all intentions, he's going on an errand to check on his brothers. One, because his father asked him to, and two, because his intentions are simply to check to make sure that they're well. And the Bible says this. It says the brothers saw Joseph coming. They see him coming up the road to see them, coming into their place to see them. And the Bible says they began to conspire to kill him. That's how much hatred and anger and resentment was in their hearts. They began to conspire to destroy him and to get rid of him. One of the brothers, though, has a conscience about that and says, no, we shouldn't quite kill him. Let's just go ahead and throw him into this pit. Now, the pit didn't have any provision. So whether they thought that no provisions, no protection, that perhaps with no provisions he was starved, or with no protection, perhaps a wild beast from the field would destroy him. I don't know. But it was another way of saying this guy with those visions and those dreams, yeah, we're going to get rid of him. We're not going to allow him to continue to even talk to us about this. The Bible says earlier in this chapter that these brothers could barely stand to even speak with their brother. That's how much harshness was in their heart towards him. And so they conspire to do that, to throw him into the pit. The older brother makes that suggestion. But while he is away, a different brother sees a band of Ishmaelites coming by. And he says, let's take our brother and let's sell him into slavery. And so the other brothers, they agree with that and they get him from the pit and they sell him to the Ishmaelites. And I'm going to emphasize that real quickly to let you know this, that Ishmaelites are from Ishmael. Ishmael, if we will remember, is the son of Hagar. Isaac is the son of Sarah. Both of them have the same dad. That's Abraham. So we have Abraham who had Isaac. We have Isaac who had Jacob, and we have Jacob who had Joseph, right? Isaac's brother is Ishmael. So I'm only saying this to let you know that even the people for whom he was sold into slavery to, they too are his family. They're people who are close and all around him who should be rooting and celebrating and cheering from him. But from every direction, they are the ones who are a part of what they seemingly think will be his destruction and his demise. Right there, I'm going to invite you to go ahead and juxtapose yourself into the story. Step right on in here with me as Joseph begins to be on his journey to being paid to do what he was made to do. I got to point this out real quickly as we delve in. As you can already tell, it is not a pretty journey. And many of us, in hearing the stories, I call them the fairy tales, the well wishes, the whatever, about these people who made their way to fame and made their way to their platforms and their businesses and their overnight successes. We want that kind of like this easy, beautiful track. I worked hard, I got it, and it's done. I want you guys to see that even in the Bible, right now in this story, in Genesis chapter 37, this is not some easy journey. Joseph was simply out there dreaming and trying to share his dream. And lo and behold, to people who he thought would be close and rooting for him. And he is already in a space of being sold into slavery because his dreaming and his visions, it got on their nerves. So here is our awareness number one. I called it burn. We have this colloquialism among us that when we say like people burned us, and it's a derivative of understanding what fire does. Fire burns, fire scorches, fire hurts. It causes us to say, ouch. It wounds, it scars, it leaves its imprint in a negative way when it comes into contact with things. It burns, right? And so there are people who can burn us. And while that is not a glorious thing to highlight, it's a true thing. It's a true thing that oftentimes on your journey to trying to pursue your visions and your dreams and your goals and your businesses and on your way to being paid to do what you were made to do, it is a probability that someone will burn you. And we'll start right here with where Joseph is. It very well could be people who are close to you, people who you assumed would have your back, people who will be rooting and cheering for you. It was his brothers and his distant cousins who were all a part of him being taken from his father's fields into the land of captivity. And so, as we are doing our journey to be paid to do what we're made to be, let's not be naive. Let's just be aware of that there are people who perhaps are close to us who may actually be the people who can burn us. And then, even further along on the outer courts of that, understanding that sometimes we may enter into contracts where people may not have the best business scruples. We may enter into negotiations where we acted in good faith with people, believing that they would act in good faith with us. And such was not the case. We were burned by them. And we have to be able to look at those things, navigate those scenarios, and learn from those different situations. But even more than that, I want to flip it real quick and say that yes, as visionaries, business owners, entrepreneurs, founders, establishers of different things, people may burn us, but likewise, we have every opportunity, every ill opportunity is what I would say to burn people, and we do not want to do that. The brothers had ill intentions in their heart towards Joseph. Joseph's intentions towards them were to see that they were well. And this, myself included, is my challenge to each of us who are in position to handle other people. And while, yes, we want to be handled well, we cannot control other people, but we can control ourselves. And it is our responsibility to do our best to operate in integrity with people. It is our responsibility to try to make sure that even when people are not trying to handle us the best or have not handled us the best, that we have handled people the best, that we are business owners, visionaries, founders, establishments who do well by people, who can be trusted with people, who give our word and we honor our word. When we make up a make a mistake, we own that and we try to correct that. That our product is quality, that our services are our excellence. Because we love to say people should support us, but are we giving them something that is worthwhile to support? So, yes, burn. We don't want to be burned by people. but we want to have just as much care in making sure that we don't burn people. Okay, so in this particular first part of this Bible study, we see that where Joseph is definitely burned by some people, but in that we never see where Joseph intentionally tries to burn them. He tries to do right. He tries to go and make sure they're well, even when they're not operating in that same manner towards him. That's who we want to be, guys. We don't want to be taken advantage of. I'm not endorsing that, but I am endorsing that in as much as possible for us, that we operate in integrity so that our establishments, our programmings, our businesses, whatever, will be known for doing right by people. So burn. Number two, I'm going to go ahead and give it to you. Awareness number two, tip number two, however you want to take it, I would say is earn. And if you follow me for just a moment, you'll see where I got that from. We're going into chapter 39. And here we are. When we get into chapter 39, Joseph is in Egypt. So the Ishmaelites have taken him to Egypt. And the Bible says that when he arrives in Egypt, Potiphar, who was of Pharaoh's house, he actually buys Joseph from the Ishmaelites, and he takes him into Pharaoh's house. And I'm going to go ahead and get to that text. It's Genesis chapter 39, and we are looking at verses number 2 through 6. So he is now in Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh. He's a captain of a guard. He's an Egyptian. He brought him from the Ishmaelites, and he takes him home. But once he's there, in verse number 2, it says, "And the Lord was with Joseph, and he was a successful man, and he was in the house of his master at the Egyptian. And the master saw that the Lord who was with Joseph made everything that he did prosper in his hand. And Joseph found favor in his sight, and he served him. He found favor in the sight of Potiphar, and he served him. And Potiphar made him an overseer of his whole house, of all of his land, and put him in authority over everything." Y'all get that? So it was from the time that he made him overseer of his house that the Lord blessed his house. He blessed Potiphar's house for Joseph's sake. And the blessing was on his house and his land and his fields and every single thing that Joseph touched. And it said, to the point that he trusted Joseph so much that he left all that he had in Joseph's hand, and he didn't even know what he had anymore, other than the bread that he ate, other than the meal that was set on the plate before him. He was completely, impeccably trusting Joseph with everything that he had. So get that Joseph right here in Potiphar's house is pretty much being the exact same person that he had been in his father's field. Joseph in his father's field was a person of integrity. Joseph in his father's field was a person who operated clearly knowing right from wrong. Joseph in his father's field had well intentions towards people. Joseph could be trusted. Joseph walked in integrity. Joseph garnered favor in his father's field, and he shows up in Egypt, and he is that exact same person. He's in Potiphar's house, and it says Potiphar trusted him so much that the only thing that Potiphar paid attention to that he owned was the meal that was before him. So Joseph is earning this reputation, doing the work of establishing his character and who he is. Y'all take that on this path to being paid to do what we are made to do. Joseph is earning it by his character, by his trustworthiness, by his integrity, by his work ethic, by his service of excellence, by his consistency. Are we earning it? Are we doing the work? And so here goes. I want you to follow with me just a little further down. So here's what happens though. Joseph is in this place. And in the same way that his brothers had an issue with him in his father's field, Joseph bumps into another issue. In Potiphar's house is Potiphar's wife. And the wife looks at Joseph, and he's fine and he's handsome and he's smart and he's handling business, and she's attracted to him, and she continues repeatedly to try to seduce him. But remember, Joseph has already established his character in his father's field. Joseph knows right from wrong, and Joseph resists her intentions, to the point that eventually she's so desperate she reaches for him. She cries out when people are coming into the house, and he runs away to get out of that scenario. She holds onto his coat and she calls rape. So, of course, when she tells her husband that, he believes him. He puts Joseph in jail. So, Joseph is now in jail because of false accusations. Joseph is in Egypt because of jealousy and rejection and resentment. And to this day, Joseph is still operating with integrity, with trustworthiness, with excellence, with dependability. Joseph is earning this promotion that is on the way for him. And y'all trust and believe it's coming. It's payday is coming, okay? Payday is coming. But I invite you again to lean into that part of the story. For those of you who have found yourself refusing to compromise, refusing to take shortcuts, refusing to negotiate your values, and you're trying to operate in a place of honesty and integrity. You're trying to treat people right, even when you're not necessarily treated right. You're trying to go high when you see some people going low, when you see some shortcuts and some tricks and some enticements and some stuff you could do. You're trying to hold fast to that. I encourage you. That is a biblical principle. You are earning your track record. You're earning your foundation. You are making sure that that thing is right. There's a book that I've read called The Tipping Point, and it talks about the point at which a company has been grinding and grinding and grinding, and then this thing happens and they tip over, and what was once struggling now becomes like this booming success. And I'm telling you, though, that they emphasize that people often celebrate that tipping point moment, but they forget about that track record. They don't see that track record, the years behind the scenes, all of that. I encourage you today to be steadfast as it relates to your track record, knowing that your tipping point is coming. But when that tipping point comes, then you want to make sure that what people find when they dig behind the scenes, when they dig behind your logo and dig behind your brand and dig behind your cute commercials, that there is some solidarity of consistency and excellence that's in your track record. So you are establishing your track record, hold on to it and be encouraged in that. I encourage you, like sometimes it's so easy to hear about these fantasy like overnight successes, and you can minimize the success of your track record, but celebrate today. If you once had one customer and now you have three, but you say only three, recognize that you have three, and those three are built upon quality work. If you have one song out there and you really see yourself on a big stage with multiplicity in your arts, still celebrate the one song. If you are a speaker and you've only got one engagement, celebrate the one engagement, knowing that if you practice and you study and you learn, your platform is coming. Be okay with doing your track record work. Be okay with that. As a quick sidebar, even for myself, I'll share this. There are so many programs when you are a speaker or a creator of content or empowerment enthusiast as myself, where you can literally like buy likes. You can buy likes. You can buy likes for your social media platform. You can buy things to boost up your ratings, but it's a facade. It's not real. It takes groundwork to really be patient and allow your content and what you bring into the world to have such value that people organically listen to it, share it, like it. And so, since you are here, I am asking you that if this content blesses you, help me with my track record. Go ahead and subscribe to my YouTube channel, like the video, share the video on your social media platforms. If you find that the content is solid and of quality, listen to the end. I'm telling you, don't share me until listen to the end. And if so, they'll help me to establish a track record that's real by subscribing to my channel and by sharing it with other people. Now I'll jump off of that and back into this. But the thing is earned, and you will see that Joseph stays in that same vein. The Bible says that Potiphar eventually put him into prison, right? And I'm going to show you how Joseph even carries himself in prison. It says in verse number 20 of this same chapter, then Joseph's master took him and put him into prison, a place where the king's prisoners were confined. And he was there in the prison, but the Lord was with Joseph and showed him mercy, and he gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. And the keeper of the prison committed to Joseph's hand every single prisoner and whatever they did there. It says in verse 23 of 39, then the keeper of the prison did not look into, did not micromanage, did not follow up on anything that Joseph had authority over, because the Lord was with him, and whatever Joseph did, it prospered. So you see that in the father's fields, you see that in Potiphar's house, you see that in the prison. Joseph is being exactly who he was intended to be. He is righteous. He does right from wrong. He honors his word. He's committed. He's trustworthy. He's a person of integrity, to the point that it does not matter the scenario. The scenarios do not get in him. He gets into the scenarios. He is earning the platform that is coming. So again, takeaway number two, or awareness number two, is earn. Be okay with doing the work to earn the platform that you desire to have. Be okay on your journey to getting paid to do what you are made to do, to doing the actual work where your reputation, your character assessment, your trustworthiness, your integrity, your endurance during hardship, your consistency, your paying of your price is validated. Be okay with that. Earn. Got it? Got it. Gonna go down just a little bit further. So here we go. Here's where the tide is about to change. We're going jogging right on over there to Genesis chapter 40. And it says that a baker and a butler were put into jail, right? And they had a very sad countenance. And Joseph, he sees them. So here we go. Joseph, he sees them. And he asks them, so why are you all so sad? And both of them say to him that they had a dream. And so Joseph says, then tell me your dream. It's not interpretations of dreams from God. So I like this, y'all. So watch what I'm about to show you. So Joseph listens to their dreams, and then he provides a solution. Okay, so he listens, and to one, the butler, he says, oh, your dream means that the king is going to, Pharaoh is going to send for you and you're going to be released. To the baker, he says, oh, your dream pretty much means you're going to die, right? So here's the deal. I would say awareness number three, or tip number three, is to discern. So we have burn, we have learn, and now we have discern. Joseph, in the beginning, in his father's field, would have these dreams, would have these skill sets and talents. And guys, in all innocence, he was just walking around telling any and everybody, any and any time. He didn't have a sense of discernment. He didn't know when and who and how and where to share what he knew was a natural gift and calling for him. And so I want to be clear about this. I don't have any issue. This is not an anti-networking type of moment right here, because networking is really based off, kind of like in fishing, where you have a net and you throw it out there, and whatever good things you can get in the net, you get it. But in that net, you also get the dirt, you get the grime, you get the mud, you get the spoiled fish, the dead fish, all of it's right there and together, and you have to kind of sort it through it. And all of that, there's a time for all of that, where you have to sort through some leads and on, and y'all get that part, right? But in this particular case, Joseph has transitioned from being this little boy out in the field, just tossing out his dreams, his insight, his gifts to any and everybody who was listening. In this particular scenario, Joseph notices the countenance of the people. He asks them what's their concern, their problem. And when they articulate their concern and their problem, he recognizes that he has a skill set that is able to meet that need. A part of discernment, which is what I pray for each of us, is that God gives us insight on when and who and where to insert this awareness that we have a skill set, we have a talent, we have a calling, we have a gift, that if we brought it to the table, it would be a strategic solution to meet a need. May God orchestrate and allow you to see the moments when we have to hush because we're talking to the wrong audience, who would actually be detrimental towards our visions and our goals. And when we should speak up, because what we have is what they want. When he was speaking to his brothers, that was the wrong audience. When he was trying to tell them what he was about, that was the wrong audience. When he went into Potiphar's house and she was trying to entice him, and he was trying to explain to her, no, 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 this is about me being a leader and this is about me doing what's right. She wasn't about that. She didn't want to hear that. But when he was in prison, when he was in prison and those people were in a place of hopelessness and being lost and wanting some understanding, when he asked them what was wrong, and then he said to them, then tell me, and they did, he knew this is my time. These people are ripe, primed, and ready for what I bring to the table. There are audiences that are ripe for what you bring to the table. Be okay with knowing not every person is your customer, not every person is your client, not every person is the person that you are supposed to do business with. It doesn't make those people wrong. They're just not the right people for you. There is an audience in the same way that he is giving you a gift or a talent. There is an audience that God has crafted for you. So here we are, the baker and the butler, they are ready. And this is what Joseph does that is strategic. He meets their need first. He tells the butler his dream, gives him that good news, gives him hope, gives him insight, gives him wisdom into his dream, and then tells him, now when you are brought before Pharaoh, the person who Joseph recognizes can also change his life, he says to the butler, remember me. But before he begins to negotiate business card swap and all of that, he makes sure that he meets a need for the butler. He answers the butler's need. And then he asks the butler, now, when you have an open door, remember me. See, that's strategy. That's discernment. That's learning how to put other people's needs before you, especially when you have a solution, and then ask them to help you to meet your need as well, right? So Joseph does that. And the Bible says this, that our gifts will bring us before great men. So Joseph doesn't push it any further than that. He just says, remember me. So that's what I would say for us is tip number 3, awareness number 3, discernment. Pray to God to give us discernment. May we know the right timing to speak. May we know the audience for whom we are assigned. May we even be able to see circumstances that may appear to be less favorable as the circumstance in which we are supposed to move. Remember this. Joseph, when he gets his breakthrough point that's right around the corner beyond this little segment, Joseph is in prison, right? He's not on some public platform. He's not before lights and a stage. Joseph is in his lowest low. I encourage you again, for those of you who may be despising your current platform, your current place to administer your skill set, to administer your gift, to administer your calling, because you envisioned something different. You wanted something more. When Joseph saw himself, he didn't see himself in prison. He saw himself with people bowing down to him, and he was a leader with promotion. But here he is, though. He doesn't despise that while I am not yet on that platform, here is another place, even in my worst state, where somebody still needs my gift. So even in states that are not quite where you envision, somebody still needs your gift. And perhaps operating in your gift in that state is what will allow you to go to your next state. So be encouraged in that. So Joseph does that. He interprets the dream for the butler, and true enough, the butler, as Joseph said, he is sent for by the king. He is set free. The only thing that does not happen that Joseph asked was that the butler remembered him. So the butler forgets. The Bible says that the butler forgot for 2 whole years. But here we are. We're about to wrap this up and bring this on home. What does it look like to get paid to do what we are made to do? Well, here's the deal. Here's the closure. In chapter number 41, the butler has been out now for about 2 years. Can you imagine what probably went through Joseph's heart? Like, oh Lord, I'm still in prison. I'm innocent. And for real, he's innocent. And this, that, and the other. And the butler has forgotten about me. He probably has moved on past that point, because in month number 1, probably excited. Second month, probably excited. But 2 whole years later, you have forgotten about me, right? And then this is what happened all of a sudden. Somebody's coming down the prison walls, y'all. Coming down the prison wall, because God is perfect just like that. They're coming and they're looking for Joseph. And there is brought to their attention that the butler was adding something. And Pharaoh is having dreams. And the butler is serving Pharaoh. And Pharaoh cannot figure out his dream. And it is in that moment, in verse number 41, y'all, tip and point. Somebody say tip and point. In chapter number 41, verse number 9, where the butler says, I remember my faults. I remember my faults. I remember that I was supposed to get out of prison, and Pharaoh, I was supposed to tell you about this man who can interpret dreams. And now that you're here and you're having dreams, let me tell you about this guy that I met in prison. Remember that, y'all? Imagine had Joseph set on his gifts in his low state. Imagine had Joseph been pouting because he was in prison. Imagine had Joseph been pouting because his brothers had sold him into slavery. Imagine had Joseph surmised that his dreams and stuff hadn't profited him anything and he gave up on them in his low place. He would not have put anything then in the butler's head to remember, even though it was 2 whole years later. At least he had not given up on himself and his dreams in his low place and had activated and operated in his gift regardless. And thus, when it came opportunity for the butler to remember, there was something in his head to remember. And so the butler says, there's this guy. Y'all, I met him in prison, not on the playground, not on a public platform. I met him in a low place. But this I know, he has a skill set that is second to none. He can interpret dreams. And so Pharaoh sends for him. And the Bible says in verse 14, y'all, I like this. It says the word quickly. Meaning this turnaround thing, this tipping point thing that I referenced early, it can happen quickly. You can find yourself in your low place one night and quickly be in the public platform that you desire. So quickly, the Bible says that Joseph shaved, got dressed, got himself together, and found himself before Pharaoh. He's before Pharaoh, and Pharaoh begins to tell him about this dream and not being able to interpret it, and that he heard that Joseph could do it. And Joseph said, oh, no, no, no. God can do it. Catch that. God can do it. And so Pharaoh tells him the dream. Joseph does what he does, works his stuff with these dreams that he's been having from way back in his father's field, honing that gift, works that thing out, tells Pharaoh what it means. And then, in addition to that, he gives Pharaoh some advice. And he tells Pharaoh, basically, your dream is saying that you're about to go through 7 amazing years of prosperity. But shortly thereafter, you're going to have 7 years of like a disparate type of famine. There will be so much scarcity. There will be so much lack. And you need to get things in order. You need to get people that you can trust in place, in order, so that they can manage your good years, so that when your bad years come, you'll be prepared. Y'all, this is like crazy good how God does things. So then Pharaoh listens to the advice. All of his people listen to the advice. Y'all, they come on one accord about that thing. They fully agree, right? That's a God thing. They all fully agree. No argument, no pushback. And then they turn to Joseph. Get this. I'm going to tell you what it says in I want to say it is chapter number 41, because I want you to see this. In chapter number 41, give me just one moment, get us there. Over my time, it'll be there. Be wrapping it up for you guys real quick. Chapter number 41, it says this. It says, and so then Pharaoh said to Joseph, can we find, he said to his servants first, can we find such a one as this, a man who is in the spirit of God, basically who we can trust, all this stuff that Joseph just described, who will manage our good years so that in our bad years we can have more and all of that. And then Pharaoh says, you know what? He turns to Joseph, you know what? Inasmuch as God has shown you all this, there is no one more discerning and wise as you. You'll be over my house. You'll be the one that's over my people. You'll rule according to your word. Only in regard to the throne will I be greater than you, Joseph. Everything that I have is under you. I set you over all of Egypt. And there you have it. Just that quickly. Somebody said quickly, right? That's what happens. And here is the deal. Joseph is now being paid to do what he was made to do. He was already in his father's fields dreaming and trying to interpret dreams. And sticking with that and being burned along the way, and earning his reputation along the way, and then learning to use discernment, Joseph finds himself being appointed to be over all of Egypt. He gets a wife from Pharaoh. He lives in the palaces. He rides in the chariots. He's fed by the butlers and the bakers. All of those things. And when he would have the dreams, and the family was jealous because they thought it was only in reference to him, God wasn't just giving him his family in the future to bow down to him. He was giving him a nation. May we be paid to do what we are made to do, you guys. May we really submit ourselves to the process and find ourselves being made to do being paid to do what we were made to do. And this particular lesson is burn, earn, and learn. Burn, earn, and learn. Give you something to go back and review again and again. Think about it. And as I've said before, subscribe and share. I'm trying to earn my way as a person who gives credible content. I thank you for joining me today. I trust that you receive something that's blessed you. I pray God's discernment. I want to add this real quickly. For those of you who want to know more about discernment, I am particularly writing about that in my Thursday blog this week. So you're welcome to get that on my website at www.drginalyn.com. You can subscribe and it will let you know as soon as that blog hits on Thursday, going into a little bit more about discernment, how to know what doesn't even show, right? So thank you again, though, for joining me. I honor the greatness in you. Y'all go ahead and be great. Like, be great. There's greatness in each of us. I honor that greatness in you. Have a fantastic week. Bye now.